right? So like the lighting that I have set up in here, I have set up for when I'm filming myself, but I'm usually facing the other way and my computer's the backdrop. So I got like this light up back here. I got one up here that you can't really see, but it's not like good for facing the computer because the light is like way up here. So it's like I just opened up like an email in my browser and just like sized it off to the side of my monitor, and that's like giving me all this light.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, yeah, just getting creative.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. I gotta brighten my screen because it's like a good fill light, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I feel like it looks pretty good.
yeah, but anyways, I guess I should do the official introduction. You know, everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Thomas Galgani Show and the first episode of this show. And I'd like to welcome my guest, Mr. Michael Brown of Seymour Mac Productions. Welcome aboard.
Hey, what's going on? I didn't realize I was going to be your first.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was planning on doing a solo podcast, like 30 minutes or whatever, kind of doing an introduction, and that, because probably a lot of them are going to be solo. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on myself to get a guest like every single week, you know, but yeah, this was just the timing, and it's awesome, man. I mean, I'm excited because we've, you know, been speaking with each other for a long time, and this is the first time where it's like, you know, maybe we'll have a chance to kind of dive a little bit deeper with like just, I don't know, anything, like whatever, you know. I don't have anything like scripted or planned, obviously, so it's like whatever you feel like sharing it would be awesome, you know.
Yeah, like I told you last night in the chat we had going on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like I'm an open book. So we could literally, wherever the conversation takes us, I'm willing to go. I have no secrets. I have like one or two secrets that nobody knows about, not even my wife. But the bodies are buried somewhere. But no, man, I'm excited to chat with you because, you know, we've known each other for probably about a year or so.
I think so.
And we've never met in person. We've had plenty of phone calls, plenty of, you know, Zoom meetings, virtual kind of calls where we're discussing, you know, trying to progress in our respective video businesses, you know, sharing, you know, pitches with each other, you know, running through, hey, I got a call coming up. Do you think maybe we can kind of just do a little role play? So doing some like role playing. So we've had like a pretty conducive relationship, I feel like a friendship and like a business relationship that has been like really valuable to me. So right off the bat, I just want to say thank you for all the help that you've given me, whether you've known it or not. Even just your input at times has been like really beneficial for me and what I'm doing over here. You know, I'm on the East Coast of the country, you're on the West Coast, and you know, like it's just good to know that there's people out there that, you know, I mean, dude, you've heard me be pretty vulnerable. You know, I've gone through some personal stuff in the time that we've known each other, and you know, I totally respect you and your point of view and the opinions that you've shared with me. So I just want to say right off the bat, thank you. And I am very excited to have this conversation and see where it goes.
Yeah. Hey, and same to you, man. Thank you, because, and that's one thing I should probably point out to anybody who's listening to this is it is kind of funny to me that, you know, Mike and I haven't actually met in person, but I feel like I already know you pretty well, you know, because we've had a lot of interactions, you know, like you said, over the calls, and whether it be something like role plays, you know, and that's, you know, a sales call role play is what it was. But like kind of what I've learned too is that it's really just about improving your communication and how you're able to listen to people, how you're able to help people, because that's all sales really is. You know, I've kind of changed my perspective with regards to that. So just communication as opposed to like any negative connotation that somebody might have with sales to begin with.
Yeah. Can we jump into that a little bit? Because, you know, like just to give a little context to kind of like how our relationship started, we both were in the same video business coaching program. I feel like, you know, I don't remember exactly how you felt coming out of that, but I felt like for me, it was very necessary at the time. It was perfect timing for what I needed. It was not cheap. It was pretty expensive to go through the program, but I did make a good amount of money while I was there for the 6 months. And, they helped me. Some of the things that I feel like really helped me through that program, because there are a lot of parts of it where I felt like I was beyond, like I had already progressed too far for some parts of it. But some of the more valuable parts for me were like those sales, like the sales training parts of it. And then maybe even some of the systems, like I still use the quote unquote pitch deck kind of outline and the kickoff meeting outline from that program. But I remember us going through some of those role plays where we're going through sales. And I literally just had a discussion yesterday with an associate of mine out here, where we were talking about like sales, and I hate sales. But what I recognize is I love discussion, right? I love talking to people. I love getting to know people and letting people get a feel of who I am. So I don't know, like when you say your kind of point of view have changed on that, my point of view has been like where when I went through the program, I was like, man, I got to do more sales. I got to be a salesman. I really got to do numbers. I got to do sales. And of course, there's something to that. There's people who knock doors and call numbers all day.
Yeah.
They make great livings. Those sales warriors, hats off to them, because it's just not in me to do that day in, day out and have like the consistency and the confidence to do that. But I have changed more of my mindset and kind of adapted to what has worked in 2023 for me. When I look at all my clientele that I got, where did I get them from? It wasn't from paid advertising that I did. It wasn't there was some from like cold calling and shit like that, but it was mostly in-person networking and referrals locally where I got most of my business.
Nice.
When I think about that, it's been more of that face-to-face time, the shaking the hand, getting to know somebody, not really selling them anything, just getting to know them, and them going like, hey man, I kind of like you. Like, what do you do? Like, what is your thing? And then through that, it, transitions into some sort of business partnership. So what has been your evolution, let's say, on the sales perspective?
Yeah, 100%. I think that like for me personally is, as I kind of mentioned before, just that listening, finding commonalities, and then, there's a big thing in sales when people say pain points, right? So it's like you want to find the pain points. I don't always like to say it like that because it's assuming that there's something wrong with the person that you're talking to, and, I have a long way to go, a long way to learn with not just sales, but business altogether, obviously. But it's like I changed from that course that we took, it was super beneficial to me from the sales side, which I think was most of what, they taught anyways. It wasn't even necessarily the business. And I think rightfully so, because their thing was basically like, if you're not hitting a certain amount of revenue each month, you have no business kind of looking into the other systems or logistics on a day-to-day basis. You have to have, it's like cash flow is like the bloodline of or the lifeline of your business, And so, but yeah, it was interesting to me, the amount of kind of hustle that was required, which I don't even think about it that way anymore, but just the consistency of hitting like, okay, I need to make this many calls each day. And I've heard a few people say like, hey, don't look at it as like, I need to make X number of sales. Think about it like, I need to help this many people today, or at least give X number of people the chance to see, like, just to be aware of what I do, right? How it could help them. And, I think that's just the biggest thing, is like, how can I help people? And if it doesn't work out, or if there's something about me that doesn't resonate with people, that's fine. Just like almost as I recently kind of started posting consistently on social media. It was awkward at first. I started with Instagram. I'm getting into YouTube and obviously podcasts like right now, but Instagram mainly because that's what I was familiar with. More people kind of follow me through there, people that I know that I've kept in touch with and stuff like that. But I realize it's like, if you lose followers along the way, for example, that's okay, because you don't really want to kind of have that. You want to have the people following you that, you resonate with, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like trimming the fat, I guess, is like,
Yeah.
not to put it that way or refer to, because those are actual people, most of the time. If it's
No,
not,
they're fat. They're subcutaneous fat or whatever it's called.
yeah. No.
Well, listen, you're not for everybody, right? And that's kind of like the point, right? And as your evolution changes and you start adapting your messaging, and the fact that you're doing more content, and you're doing your own self-branding, which is what it is, right? Like, you're putting out content now, because I watch it all the time, where for people who have been your IG followers for a long time, they may be following you because of the weddings that you've shot and that kind of material that you put out there. Then you start putting out personal content where you're just talking about, like, hey, here's how my morning routine goes. Here's what I've been learning about, conversation and listening, and and these things. That's not for everybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not everybody likes broccoli, so some people love broccoli. Some people hate broccoli. So you're not going to be palatable for everybody. And I think, to your point, it's like, as you're finding your own voice and what you want your platforms and your quote unquote followers, or, whatever, to see you as, you want them to see you as yourself, hopefully. But people are going to leave. And then hopefully other people who are more aligned with you and resonate with you more are going to join in. And there's going to be way more value shared there, not just you towards them, but them towards you as well, right? Because when those people give you feedback, it's actually going to be helpful, constructive feedback, because they like what you're doing, but they might have some thoughts or some ideas. Whereas opposed to the person who's like still following you because they want to see you fail, or they don't really like what you're doing, so they're giving you feedback that just might be hurtful or not really have any kind of constructive nature to it. Like, that's not helping you at all. So it's a two-way street. Content is a two-way street, right? It's like, a lot of people look at it like, I'm a content creator. I need to put content out. I need to push it out there. And I do this a lot too, where I post and then I ghost. Like, I don't really engage a lot with my own content, right? Unless people engage with it, then I try to engage with them. But I kind of post and I'm very inconsistent with it. I need to get better. I need to take a note from your book and just really get better at branding myself and putting myself out there more, because I feel like that's where the value is. Because what are we doing? We're building trust in us, which hopefully builds trust in the person watching it in what we provide, which for us, it's our business, right? So, like, my video business directly correlates with my content that I'm putting out. So I need to just kind of be aware of it, and then also engage more with people, I feel like, that want to engage more with me and my type of content. So it's been a struggle for me a little bit, but I love what you're doing, man. I think it's cool because it gives people a window into who Thomas actually is. They're not just seeing like the final wedding video clips and the reels that you're putting up anymore. They're seeing that, but they're also seeing you as a person. And I think that is going to be super beneficial, because you're going to be aligned with more clientele, more customers, more people in your network who you're probably actually going to like a lot more, and who are going to like you a lot more. And that just makes for better relationships all around, business, personal, pleasure, all of that.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that that's kind of what content or marketing in general really is too, is just kind of showing people who you are. You want to be vulnerable. I think that can be manufactured nowadays a little too easily sometimes, but if you're just being authentic, just being honest and just talking about stuff that you want to talk about, then that could be of benefit to people that you don't even know. You never know who's watching. And just because something seems obvious to you doesn't mean that other people can't benefit from it, and I like posting. I personally like posting about things that I'm interested in, just because that's what I'm most passionate about, so it doesn't always have to be related to the video stuff. But by that same token, if somebody does end up needing video and they resonate with something that I've been posting before on a separate topic, they might be more inclined to reach out to me. or even listen to somebody that I reference who's like another video person, be like, okay, maybe I'm not, they don't go with me, but they go with somebody else that I recommend, and that's fine too. And the followers type of thing, and by the way, I don't think it's a bad thing for people to admit they want to gain followers. The goal, I heard somebody say too, the goal is not to gain followers on social media or just online in general. You want to build a library of content that's so valuable that people feel like they're missing out on something if they don't follow you, and so like you focus on the content, what you're putting out there, and then the following will come. And then when you talk about things you're honestly serious about talking about, like your following will evolve with you, so as long as you don't step too far outside of whatever your self is. Like if I can't even think of an example, but if I'm like with everything I'm talking about now, if all of a sudden I started talking about, let's see, I picked the most random like topic, that would be
space travel.
Yes.
Do you know anything about space travel?
I don't yet.
Intergalactic space travel? Yeah, not yet. Did you say? Not yet, but there's still time.
Yeah, there is. And if I started talking about that, and acting like I'm an expert on it, which I'm not, and then obviously I'd probably lose a lot of people, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, and you kind of touched on something that it was really interesting to me. I've heard you talk about this before too, is the idea of trust with video. Would you maybe want to go into a little bit about like what you mean by how video builds trust? Because obviously, since I'm kind of in the same industry, we know like when somebody sees video of somebody talking and they feel like they know the person, that's like helping to build trust. But what if, like, how do you know that that's trust that's being built, especially if they don't know exactly what they're getting yet, outside of things like testimonials or kind of reviews and stuff like that? Did you want to go into?
Yeah. So when I'm talking to my clients or potential clients, like literally every piece of video content that I could create for one of my clients is a trust building asset or exercise, right? So literally everything from the mission video, which is kind of like maybe more apparent, right? That's their why. Here's why we do what we do. You're building trust in your vision, your mission statement, the whole reason why you're providing the service you provide, or the reason why you started your business, why it's so important to you, and why your customers are so important to you, right? So that's natural, like trust building kind of video. Like you pointed out as well, like the client testimonials, that also is like very obviously a trust building exercise, right? So anybody watching this, think about when you go to purchase something off of Amazon or a website, or not in store, but definitely online. First thing that we typically do is we go to the reviews, and I want to look at all the 1-star reviews and all the 5-star reviews. Like, give me the worst of the worst, because usually those people are either being brutally honest or they're just haters, and you kind of have to like comb through the commentary there. Or the 5-star reviews, and you have to try to figure out, like, are these bots or are these real 5-star reviews where people really enjoyed this service or this product, right? And then through that, it builds trust. You don't know the company, you don't know the people who manufacture this product, but you're trusting that other people who have already purchased it before you are giving you a true perspective on what their experience has been, and therefore you feel a little bit safer pulling the trigger, spending the money, and buying this thing that you don't know if it's going to work for you at all, right? But when we think outside of those examples, which I feel like are more on the face, like on the nose with, this is clearly a trust building video. Think about a video like, let's just say like a commercial, right? Think about any commercial that you've seen recently. I don't have cable, so I don't really watch cable, but now like on every streaming platform, you have commercials that pop up. What is the intention of those ads, right? Or those commercials? One is probably get your attention right off the bat. But then after that, now they have your attention. What are they going to do with it? Are they going to piss it away? No. They're going to try to lure you in and build your trust in their product or their company or their service, right? So that as well is a trust building video asset. when you think of like more internal videos, because not everything that I do with my clients are external video assets like commercials or advertising material. Sometimes it's internal stuff. Maybe it's onboarding videos, maybe it's training videos, FAQ videos. Well, those are more external, but some of those more internal videos that you could think of, like training videos, or let's say an onboarding video for a new employee or a new client, for them is still trying to build trust in this person, right? So let's just use the example of the training or the onboarding video for a new employee in a company. What is the attempt of that? Well, one, you're trying to probably buy your time back. So you don't have to do the hands-on, like 100% of the hands-on onboarding, right? So you're buying your time back. The return on the investment for my client is going to be time, right? And time is money. So it all ultimately leads back to a return on investment of money. But for them, it's like, hey, I'm spending 10, 20 hours a week doing orientation. How can I buy that time back? Cool, let's make some video, like a video series or a single video where you could knock a bulk of that out and maybe buy half of that time back. The new employee just watches this video and they can get all the information that you normally would take, an hour to tell them. But the other thing that it's doing for the employee is building trust in this new company that they're working for. How do I know that this new company I'm working for is the place for me? And what you could do is you could create these onboarding videos that build that culture right off the bat. Hey, here's our expectations for you as a new employee. Here's what you can expect from us as a culture, as a company, as a mission, as a vision. So you're still building trust in that way. And this is like a completely internal thing. This isn't going out to the market, right? So literally everything, even when we use you as the example of the content you're putting out, right? You're building trust in who you are as a person. So hopefully people feel that you are trustworthy enough to maybe work with or follow and keep engaging with your content. So video is like the best way, and it becomes the most passive way to do it, because with a lot of these, you invest the time once to create the video, and then you could use that video until you're sick of looking at it, typically, right? Or until enough has changed in your organization where you need to create something new. But now you're able to just have that thing live up there on the website, in the onboarding material, out there on your Facebook or your social media platforms, just going out there to the world while you're out there running your business. You're doing the more meaningful stuff to you. So all of this is trust building. I see everything that we provide to our customers as building trust. And how can we correlate this to something else? Because I shoot weddings as well. I just don't promote myself as a wedding videographer, because I saw, and I'm sure this is everywhere, that if you search videographers near me, 100% of them are wedding videographers. And maybe they do some business stuff,
okay.
and maybe they do some other stuff. It's a very saturated thing, right? At least by me. So I was like, I'm cool with doing them. I shoot a lot of weddings for my friend's company. And I actually just spoke to another photographer that I worked with last year, and she wants to bring me on and sell video as well. So because she was losing a lot of opportunity because she doesn't bundle everything together. So I'm going to be her videographer as well. So that's cool. I like doing those. But how do we use the trust aspect? How does that infuse itself into a wedding video? Is there some way that these two things coexist and live together? Well, think about all these weddings that you're shooting. Let's not think about the final product. Let's think about the process. Who wants a wedding videographer, or a photographer for that matter, that they feel like they can't trust, that they feel like doesn't mesh well with their family and their friends? And like, when I'm shooting weddings, dude, I'm a part of the groomsmen, like the groom's party. Like,
Yeah.
I'm right there with these guys. I'm cracking jokes on them. I'm like meshing into the wedding party. Like, you almost don't even know I'm there as this outsider filming. I've never met these people before. Maybe I've talked to them before. Maybe I haven't. So it's like, there has to be an element of trust there that I think just kind of, like you said, you can kind of try to fake some of this shit. But when it comes to like trust and just, I don't know how much of that you could fake. Like, you could put on the wedding face, which I do a lot, but you still, like, you can't fake trusting somebody. So either they're going to like you and then they're going to get comfortable and then they're going to trust you, because there's something very uncomfortable about having a camera in your face for 10 hours. You know, like maybe by the end of it, you're like okay with it. But in the beginning of that day, man, it is brutally awkward for a lot of people. But then when it comes to that final wedding video product, is there a trust element there? Yeah, I think there is. I think because when you are putting that out there, hey, look at this wedding I just shot for Billy and Samantha, or you always say the girl first. So Samantha and Billy's wedding video, you're building trust in hopefully future, clientele that would want to hire you as their wedding videographer, right? So I don't know if that makes sense or if that's relevant to you, but that's what I see. I see everything we do as like trust building.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's well said. And I agree 100% too, especially on the wedding side, because they only get it's one day, right? That they've already invested thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars into one day. And it's a big deal. And it's kind of like what you were saying is like the wedding film of the product, am I trusting this guy to, or gal to deliver a great film and maybe even, a series of videos afterwards? That's important. But it's also like you are the product, too, because is this person going to make me feel even more uncomfortable on the day of, or as in like, they might be nervous to begin with. Right. And so it's like, depending on the person, I've had a lot of weddings where everybody's just super excited and in a great mood like the entire time, and all I have to do is not mess it up, right? I just got to be.
Got to take the lens cap off.
I know. Yeah.
And record.
Yeah, and just be along for the ride, and not just be, because that's kind of one of the trends I've noticed too in the wedding film industry, is that it used to be they would expect the guy with the camera to be like a fly on the wall, like, oh, just shoot over the shoulder of the photographer, be a fly on the wall, and don't kind of like talk to anybody. Whereas now it's become more accepted. It's like, no, man, like you should be like, everybody knows that you're there, so be there, and have fun with it, let other people have fun with you being there. And then it also just kind of makes the video better that way too, because it's visible that people are having a good time, and that when the camera comes near them, they're not, off. They're not put off by it. But
yeah, when I'm filming weddings, dude, I'm all over the place. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless it's in like a Catholic church setting where they like make it very obvious, like, hey, just kind of like stay off on the side aisles. Don't like be walking around in the front. But otherwise, dude, I'm behind the wedding line, like when they're saying their vows. Like, I'm not obviously in the middle of the shot, like behind the officiant or whatever. But I'm like off to the side behind the line of bridesmaids, and I'm getting different angles, right? Because we have multiple cameras set up and we're getting different shots. But when they watch that final video, I want them to go, oh shit, I didn't even realize that happened. Like, I didn't realize my grandfather was crying at the moment when, like we said I do, because they're just like, they're trying not to screw it up either, right? Like, they're in their future spouse's eyes, and they're just kind of like making sure they don't, drop the ring or, do something silly or something stupid. And they're missing a lot. We didn't hire a wedding videographer for our wedding, and I do regret it. We were on like a tighter budget, but I regret it because there's so much that I don't remember. Like, first of all, I was on the dance floor the whole night. Me and my wife and I should say, didn't leave the dance floor. We didn't even like go around, like, how like a lot of couples will go around and like say hello to everybody, which is probably the respectful thing
like
to do.
Table to table.
Yeah, they go like table. Thank you, Aunt Mary, for coming. Like, Uncle Billy, thank you so much. We didn't even do any of that shit. Like, it didn't cross. It wasn't like a disrespect thing. It wasn't like even a conscious decision. But we were just like, hey, we're here. We're having fun. Like, if you want to let us know you're here, like, come up. You know where we're at. We're either at the table in the front or we're on the dance floor. But there's so much that I feel like I miss. Like, I hear people tell stories even to this day. Like, my sister will be like, and do you remember when Uncle Richie fell through the side door and this and that or whatever? And they're like, no, I don't remember that. Like, damn, I wish I could have seen that. And that's what we're there for. We're there to hopefully capture those moments where when they look back at it, the next, when you deliver it to them, hopefully within a few weeks or, a few months, few years, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, when their kids, their grandkids are watching these videos, 80 years from now, 100 years from now, if nobody like formatted the hard drive or something like that, like these things will always be there to pass along those moments that they're never going to be able to remember, or they weren't even a part of, because there's so much going on these days. And like you said, like it only happens once. So for a wedding videographer or a photographer, it is very stressful, and if you're a solo shooter, like I don't know how many weddings you shoot where you're the only videographer.
A few, yeah.
Dude, you got to pay me $1 billion to do that anymore, because if I'm doing prep, like I'm doing the bride prep, the groom prep, and they're not even in the same location, dude, I almost just want to go home. Like I just want to throw up and then like leave and go drive home, because it's so stressful. It's like, okay, all right, I've been here for 15 minutes. I got a bunch of cool shots. All right, now I got to go over see the groom who's 20 minutes away, and I got to go get that. And then the venue's 20 minutes from here, and then I got to go back, and then audio and lighting and video and this camera and that camera. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
Did I get the letter readings? Did I, I always miss one thing, and hopefully it's like a minor thing, but it's like, it's very, very stressful. So like anymore, like I tell my mentor, or if I book any for myself, I'll take less money. I will pay somebody to be there to just relieve the stress level a little bit. So that way, because when you're stressing, I don't know how good your poker face is, but like sometimes it's really hard to hide the fact that you're kind of stressing. You're thinking about like a billion things, and they're just asking you a simple question, and you're like, what, like what? And so it's super stressful, which is kind of why I don't really book them for myself. It's like I'd rather do B2B, where it's like we could take our time. We could really think about shit. If it doesn't go right, we could retake it. We could, okay, we got it now. Perfect. Let's move on to the next thing. That's kind of more my speed. When the wedding parties and the families are cool and they're having fun and they're partying, those are great. The 1 out of 10 where you got a bridezilla, or the mother of the bride is just a monster. Or everybody's like real stale and they don't, like they're no energy. Those can be very daunting. And then those are like, oh man, like I don't know how much I love doing these.
It can be stressful for sure. And kind of to your point about like, if you can hide it, it's not a good look, but it's also contagious too. So if you have brought on somebody too, and a second shooter, and maybe it's your first time working with that person and you're trying to make a good impression with that, but not just for, your reputation, but also just because if you're stressed, like you said, then other people can be stressed, and then it's just not a good feel, and nobody else has to think about all the stuff that videographers have to think about on the day of, right? Because of course, yes, I know like photography is also extremely difficult. I'm not saying that one's harder or more important than the other. They're just different, because when the photographer is taking all the family portraits and stuff like that, we don't really have to worry about that most of the time. It's, they have to get those, and that's cool. But like you were saying, like with the sound and stuff like that, and somebody might be saying that, oh, we're just 15 minutes behind schedule, that, and if you have to get to another location and you still need this one shot at that first one, on the surface, you're like, okay, no worries, like we're good, but inside just like, no, we are not good.
We are not good. Things are going bad.
This is bad.
And I will say it for you, because you're just a super nice guy, and I know you won't say it. Videography is way more stressful and harder than what the photographer is doing. I don't think it's more important.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think when you're working with a good photography team, it makes things so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I work with Pete, my mentor, the guy who I shoot weddings for mostly, we have a great time. First of all, we're good friends, and we work very well together. He's got really great positive energy. And I think to your point earlier, it's like, it's very contagious, right? So when your vendors are in shitty moods and they're just kicking dirt around and they're just like grumpy, everybody is feeling that energy. That just goes with life, like even in your own household. If you come home from work every day and you just start complaining about Tim and Jim and all these guys at work and it sucks so much. It's like, the person you're coming home to, your kids, your family, your wife, like they don't want to hear that shit. And like your wife will hear you out, but let's not make that the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you come home. That energy is super contagious. This is something that I've been working on for the past year, 2 years, and I've been making a lot of progress on it. I feel like you've been on a very similar journey. It goes very, very much hand in hand with the discipline journey, with the fitness journey, and the nutrition journey. The mindfulness aspect of all of that has been huge and something that I continue to work on. And this has been probably one of the most beneficial evolutions that I've made in my personal life, especially, where it's like I'm going to have a conscious decision here to be in a better mood no matter what's going on. And I've been dealing with some heavy shit lately. No matter what, I'm going to try to be the positive energy, that higher frequency in my household, in my family unit. And because I want those ripples to go out and affect my family. I don't want to send negative energy out, because that's what you're going to wind up getting back, right? So I need to feel better for myself, but for everybody around me, but mainly for myself, right? It's like when the plane is going down, they don't tell you put the oxygen mask on the person next to you first. Put yours on first and then help the person next to you. If you can't help yourself, how the hell are you going to help anybody else? So that energy is super contagious, and you have to be very, very aware of it. As a service provider, like when we just correlated to business, as a service provider, you have to be very aware of that energy. Like nobody wants to work with like an electrician or a plumber who comes to your house, enters your home, and is just a shitty person, just has this really bad energy. Like you don't want this person in your house. Like I don't care that the wire's getting stuck when you're pulling it through the fucking beam. Like I don't care. Like keep your shit together, man.
Yeah.
Keep it together and just like put on a smile and get through the day. And when you get back in your truck, you could punch the dashboard, like whatever, man. But like while you're here, let's share some positive energy, man. So that has been like my main focus this past couple months, especially. It's been like this, what is my energy level? What frequencies am I putting out there, and how mindful am I being of that? And what are my intentions, right? And like setting those early in the day. So that way, hopefully it sets me up for a productive, good, positive, loving day for the rest of that day.
Have you noticed kind of a difference when, if you come home or, you treat just kind of how you act with your family and how things are home? Have you noticed an impact on your business when, with regards to how you act at home or how things are at home? Does that kind of positively impact your business? Because I think sometimes it's easy to remember, like, oh, when things are going well at work, we come home, obviously, if more revenue's flowing and stuff like that, it's kind of easier to be in a good mood. But have you noticed it in the other direction too? Like if you come home or like just things are on a good note with the family, have you noticed that come full circle with the business side as well?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everything's connected, right? So like you said, when things are going well at work, things typically are going well at home too, because everything's good. Bills are getting paid, money's getting saved, food's on the table. Let's go to Red Lobster tonight. Like, everything is good. When shit gets tight with business, yeah, like that negativity kind of flows inward. But it does work the other way as well. Like, listen, we're just human, right? Everybody's on their own journeys, even like you and your spouse. Yeah, you're on a together journey. Like, I can't remember who I heard say this, but they said something to the effect of marriage is two people on separate journeys holding hands, right? So you're still your own person, right? Hopefully you guys are aligned in a lot of ways where you are complementing each other and you're supporting each other. And I feel like through marriage and personal relationships, those go through ebbs and flows, right? People change. People go through different journeys, right? Like maybe somebody's at a high for a few months. Maybe they're at a low point in their life for a few months. If we're talking about like marriage and being somebody's spouse, like it is kind of our duty to recognize those highs and lows and hopefully adapt with them and give as much support as we can. But we still have our own journey going on, right? So for me, being a fairly new business owner, like last year in 2023 was the first full year that I ran my business. For 13 years before that, I was in the pharmaceutical industry, just punching a clock. I was making good money. I had benefits, like all of that was great. But like I had, my time was up there. I had to leave. I took a leap of faith in myself and in God that this is the direction I needed to go, was to do my own thing, which is completely scary. First of all, I had no clients when I made that decision. I had like maybe one client. I was making no money. I had no real reason to believe that it would work. You know who had less reason to believe that it would work? My wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, she has seen me time and time again start something and never finish it. Start a fitness journey, do it for a few weeks or a few months, fall back to my old ways. Start eating better, do that for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden I'm eating every Oreo cookie in the house. Like, start a new hobby, you know, like I'm fixing cars. I'm going to fix cars and flip them. And then a few months later, my eye gets caught on something else, and now I'm doing that. So for her, like, I can only imagine, I had taught her over the course of our relationship to believe, not that I'm a failure, but that I'm somebody who will start something, be super, super obsessed with it, but then a few months later, just completely drop it and be obsessed with something else. Why would she have any faith that I would put my everything into this video business and then this would work and replace my salary that I was making, considering now, like, I was the only one making an income at that time. She was in school. So very scary. So through that period, that transition where I went from working for somebody else to working for myself, I mean, it was very, very hard. This was also in the middle of COVID, which destroyed relationships all across the globe. Yeah. You know, people who loved each other and trusted each other and liked each other, families and friends and coworkers and neighbors, became adversaries. And this was something that we felt in our relationship, and it definitely did a number. It's something that we have to continually work to repair even in 2024. So, you know, like, with all this being said, this is my long way around to saying so much affects the relationship. With the point of your relationships in your household, depending on where those are, right? If they're positive, then you go out into your business, you go out into your work, your job with that positive energy because things are good at home. But when things aren't so great at home, it makes it very, very difficult to then, you know, start your work day. Like for me, come down to the studio, send emails, make phone calls, work on projects, like whether I'm going out and shooting projects or they're in pre-production and I got to develop scripts or whatever, or I'm editing stuff. It makes it very, very difficult to be focused enough to actually be productive. And listen, I'm going through it, you know, like right now, like, marriage is not an easy thing. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's very difficult. Right now happens to be a period of difficulty for me personally, and it has affected my ability to be productive in my business, which is not good, because if you are a business owner and you do not take the steps, put in the reps, there's no paycheck just magically showing up on Friday. You know, like, I don't get a direct deposit every other Friday, you know, regardless of how well I'm doing my job or not. It's like, I need to show up, get projects complete, deliver those, get paid. And when things aren't going well at home or with your relationships, that could have a very impactful effect, positive or negative, on your ability to be productive in your business. So it's something that you just have to be very aware of.
100%. Yeah, that's one of the things I've kind of noticed is, like, also the, you know, nothing's guaranteed, you know, like, and my wife and I, you know, we had a son, he's almost 2. And that's been kind of the biggest motivator for me, is just seeing him develop so quickly each day. Is like just looking at him and he's like, oh, you know, like he's listening to everything, you know, he sees everything. And it's like, that's one of the things that, you know, I'm super grateful. My parents, they just provided so much for me, you know, and I'm not just saying that because they're probably going to listen to my first podcast episode.
And the first and last, maybe. Say nice things.
I know. But no, honestly, I mean, because it's hard. Like, marriage is awesome. But things can be hard too, especially if, like, you know, maybe your kid is screaming, they need something, but it happened to be at the same time that you're trying to communicate with your spouse. And then all of a sudden you can't even say something that you wanted to express at the time, but it's like, hey, no, man, grow up. It's not a big deal. That's I'm speaking like what I've had to tell myself sometimes.
I thought you were saying that to your kid. Hey, man, grow up. It's not a big deal. He's like, yeah, but I got shit in my diaper, Dad. Like, I'm trying to get this out of me. Like, let's do this.
Yeah. But I think it's like, no, because I've had to catch myself too of like, don't be so emotional or needy, and just remember, like, because that's why you got to schedule that time with your spouse. I heard Jordan Peterson say, as a clinical psychologist, he's certain that you need a minimum of 90 minutes a week with your spouse to talk, to have meaningful exchange. That doesn't mean you can't watch Netflix together and stuff like that, but you need at least 90 minutes a week to talk about each other's lives, kind of like what you said, like two separate people, or on two separate journeys that are holding hands, like they have their own lives, like your spouse has their own life. And so it's like, you have to be interested in that. And, I'm naturally interested and I care, but you also have to put in the reps too. It's just like fitness, like, I'm naturally, into working out. And it's like, but if I don't put in that time, obviously I'm going to be extremely out of shape, no matter whatever I tell myself in my head, like you have you have to put in the time. And, but yeah, going back to, it's like I forget, where I was going with the whole, like, if, just putting in that time, what you were saying, like how it comes full circle, because it shows, right? Like, so how things are at home, affects the business and stuff like that. But like, when I was saying stuff with like my parents, how great they've been with me, they kind of taught me, that it's like you have to earn what you get. And I don't mean just like, oh, you earn, revenue, like work hard, like do stuff, but also like the quality of life with your spouse and with your kids and stuff like that, because it's like it's very easy to be in a bad mood sometimes, but you have to kind of flip the switch and be like, okay, what went well today, what am I grateful for, and show that through your actions and how the energy that you bring home, kind of like what you said, like they don't want to hear that stuff. No. And like my wife, for example, she will listen and she'll definitely be empathetic, even sympathetic with stuff that I have going on. But it's like, but it's obvious, like that doesn't benefit anybody to just like vent about, oh, like this went, I can't believe this person didn't, do this, or like this didn't go well and I did everything. It's like, it's not useful, And so that's been the biggest switch, is just bringing that emotion down, kind of like going back to the program that you brought up at the beginning, how we were in that, the video business coaching, group together. I remember Jay, one of the things that he said that I loved was he would remind us that as emotion goes up, intelligence goes down, and
I have a guest appearance. My son.
Oh, nice.
But close the door. Is everything okay? What's not okay?
The Wi-Fi just randomly disconnected.
Okay, dude, the tablet thing? That's not that important right now. I'll come up and fix it when I'm done. The tablet, bro.
Oh.
He's like, no. Like, oh no, what happened? The dog fell in the well?
Oh,
no,
man.
the Wi-Fi disconnected from the tablet. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah. I told him, I'm like, I'm going to be having a conversation with a friend. So, if you have to come, if something important happens, you come get me.
Hey, that's important. Got to have the Wi-Fi going.
To him, you got to have that Wi-Fi. No, no. So you were saying what Jay was saying about, like bringing the energy level down, and just being aware of like the emotion.
Yeah, I'll never forget, as he just kind of kept reiterating, as emotion goes up, intelligence goes down, and you want to just be in control of your emotions. A lot of people say like emotional control. I like to say, like, one thing I've been hearing people say is emotional fitness, because control almost like gives off this vibe of like, oh, we got to suppress everything, which that will definitely spill over in the long run and you know, cause bad things to happen. Just, or just, you know, even, I'm not even talking about just having a full on meltdown and like yelling at somebody. I just mean like also with productivity, you know, too, like if you're suppressing something that you've been upset about or kind of bothers you, and then all of a sudden it comes out, and then like maybe you don't feel like doing anything for a whole day, and it's just
that's not helpful.
Yeah,
right?
Steps.
No,
backwards.
this is No, I'm happy. Like this is kind of I need this conversation first and foremost, and I'm sure probably a lot of people who are going to see this are going to need this. If 2 people see this podcast, at least one of them is going to need this part of the podcast, this part of the conversation. And I'm one of them, right? So this is something that I've had to work on, you know, like the emotion goes up, intelligence goes down, hits me hard, man. Like I remember hearing him say that back then, but you saying it again, I needed to hear that again, because I've been on this journey where I'm trying to be more aware of how I respond, how I deliver information, who I'm speaking to, and how they receive information, right? Like based on the best of my knowledge, how they receive information effectively, and adapting myself to be able to not get caught in my emotions, get angry, even get too excited about something, right? Like, because that also has a similar effect. Anger seems to be the most effective at bringing the intelligence down, though. Like, think about any time you start flipping out at somebody and you're yelling at somebody, you're almost making absolutely no sense. You're like not even coherent. And then you think back, like, you know, even 30 minutes later, like what the hell happened? Like, what did I even say? Like, this just happened to me, where like I'm laying down, like within an hour, I'm laying down and I'm going like, what was I even saying? Like, I know I didn't say anything like disrespectful or anything that I necessarily regret, but what I do regret is allowing my emotions to guide my words. Yeah. And that's something that I don't like doing, right? So I've been trying to get more, I'm trying to get better at not controlling, but like, as you say, like, being more effective with my communication, and then like with my emotion level in correlation with what level of intelligence I'm trying to have at that time. Especially if you're arguing with somebody, or like your spouse, you know, you guys are having like an argument, or maybe you're not seeing eye to eye on something. When you start flipping out and you start getting angry and yelling and whatever, it's like, dude, nothing good is gonna come out of that. Yeah. And I've done pretty well with it. And then recently I just had like a spell where not a spell, but an incident where I just like, I don't know, man. I feel like I lost it. I just didn't keep my cool. And I don't like that. You know, like that's not the type of person that I want to be, not the type of person that I'm trying to become. I've come a long way from who I was even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This past year, or 2 years, I should say, you know, I went 38 years of my life without being religious. My mother's Jewish, my father's Catholic. We were never like raised one way or the other. And 38, I had some tribulations in my life, losing my previous job and going through some stuff where it opened up an opportunity for me to receive, you know, like the message of Christ and God. And it was always there, and I was always kind of a little receptive to it, but I had a lot of layers built up against it for the longest time. And then when I went through these things, it like gave me an opportunity to like hear this message in a way that I'd never heard it before. And it really resonated with me. And through this journey of becoming a Christian and becoming more aware of my relationship with God, this is one of the things that has come to me, you know, like, you know, people say, I heard God tell me, you know, go help this person. And I think it's like this booming voice from the clouds, go help that man over there. No, that's not what it is. It's a tugging on your heart to say like, hey, what's going on over there? Like, you know, what is up with this guy? Maybe there's some way that you could help. There's a little tugging of the heart that most people, I feel like they don't really pay attention to. But when you become more religious, whether, you know, in my case, become more of a Christian, it's very hard for me to even say that now. Like, why? Still, I should say, just because it's so new. Like, I'm an infant, right? I'm a little newborn baby when it comes to my relationship with God, and specifically with Jesus Christ. I went 38 years of going like, yeah, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Like I was playing that game. So I'm still trying to get used to saying it and hearing myself say it and believe it, because a lot of people say it, but they don't actually believe it. And I want to believe it, and I do believe it. It's still just so very new to me. But anyway, it's this thing that I learned where when people say like, oh, I heard God talk to me, like God told me to go in this direction or that, it's just a tugging of the heart. It's that thought, that voice in your head that says, hey, like what's going on over here? Like pay a little more attention to this. Like, why are you saying this? Like, why are you going about things in this way? And that I feel like is what a lot of people mean by when they hear, well, God told me to be nicer to my wife. No, God did. Like if you love God and you understand that God loves you and he loves your relationship with him and your relationship with your wife, then yeah, God did tell you to be nicer to your wife. But he's also showing you who you are, right? He's showing you like, hey, this person that you were up until we met is not the person that I intended for you to be. And you realize that now. So put the reps in, put the work in, right? Like, so I'm trying to be more aware of my actions and how I treat people, and specifically with my wife, because I spend the most time with her out of anybody else, but also my son and my family. I'm very close with my siblings and my parents, to just be more aware of who I am being for them, right? So I know, like, I don't know how we got here, but this is where we're at now. So do with it as you will, man.
Hey, this is the first one, that I'm doing, and I never knew, like I didn't know where it was going to go, but this is good because it's organic, and I feel like if our conversation goes in a certain direction, that's where it needs to go. It's like water, man. But
let it flow.
I wanted to ask you though, like when you were talking about, if you feel like God is tugging on your heart to go in a certain direction, I remember you said that the COVID incident, that whole period of time, that even though it was difficult, you're grateful for how it came out, because you're now in a position that you're happier with than if you would have stayed at that job in the pharmaceutical industry, and just kind of, as you put it, just going day to day, maybe just going through the motions. Do you think that you felt any of that pull before the whole COVID incident, and that was just kind of like the last straw, like, hey, this is the final sign, like you have to do something? Or was that the only thing? Like would you have felt that if it wasn't for the COVID period of time?
No, I was saying so yes and no, right? So yes, there were other things leading up to that, but that was the straw that broke the camel's back, okay. Right? That was the catalyst for change, the pivot in my life, for sure. Mm-hmm. I was at that job for 13 years. I was very good at my job. I was climbing the ladder. I was making decent money. Mm-hmm. I had good benefits. I worked with some great people. I was doing interesting work. I was in vaccine manufacturing, specifically in production, for a long time. Right before I left, I was more of an engineering supporting role to some of the production areas, where I was working on developing, not the actual vaccine. I was a manager associate scientist was my actual title, but I was a visual engineer or a visual inspection scientist. So what that kind of means is, like we run syringes and vials through machines, or we have manual inspectors look at these things before they get put out to market, make sure that there's no defects or problems with it. Only good stuff hopefully is getting out to the public. And I was working in that capacity for the year before I left. And I loved that. That was great. Like, my boss was freaking awesome. He wasn't breathing over my neck. He was a great guy. He still is a great guy. And I was working in a smaller group, and I wasn't like punching a clock anymore. I was salary, so I could kind of like work from home if I needed to. I was doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't into, like documentation and like writing SOPs and writing reports and stuff like that. But the stuff that I was really excited about was the building of new like product sets. So like building defects into sets and testing the inspectors with it, testing the machines, working on the visual inspection machines, like creating recipes for these machines to like be more effective and throw out less waste. And like, it was like really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. But leading up to that, for a very long time, I felt this kind of thing like, man, do I want to do this forever?
Really?
Like, yeah, I'm making good money for where I live, but like, is that everything? Is making good money everything? Because I feel like there's something missing. And what was missing for me for the longest time was I started making music in high school. I started like writing music and rapping and freestyling and doing like battles, and then like we started a couple groups, and then we had like this rock rap like fusion thing going on, kind of like a Linkin Park style thing or like a Limp Bizkit style thing, right? Like it was back. First of all, this was also like late '90s, so this makes sense for that time era. And like, so I always had that creative outlet, but when I was working at this job, it's all I was doing. I wasn't creating videos. I wasn't working on music. I wasn't doing anything artistic or creatively to have that outlet anymore. And I felt it after 5 years of not doing anything. I felt like there was something missing in my life, and it was this creative outlet, right? So leading up to COVID, certainly had some feelings of like, I don't know if this is what I want to do forever. When COVID happened, though, I mean, everybody realizes the world got a little weird. Conversation got weird. Relationships got tumultuous. Like it was just, communication overall was completely destroyed. Common sense was destroyed. There was just a lot going on that was destroyed. I was kind of in a unique position, being in the fact that I worked in this industry for over a decade already. So I kind of understood the processes that it took to like bring vaccines to market, and the inner workings of like how these things are produced, and like efficacy, and like, you know, like the red tape and the bureaucracy that is involved with the FDA regulations in these sites. And I was working with the literal experts on this topic when COVID had happened. Now, when COVID happened, a lot of people were forced to stay home and not work or leave their house, or felt like they couldn't leave their house or whatever. But for me, this was our bread and butter. So we went double time. They were like, oh shit, like world-ending pandemic? This is exactly what we do. Like, we do world-ending pandemics. You have to come to work. So I had to go to work every single day up until I got like that more salary flexible position in the last year. But I had to go to work every day before there was a vaccine, before we really knew what the hell was going on. You know, we were seeing the videos of people like dropping dead in like Chinese subways. Like, shit was scary, right? Yeah. Like everybody was kind of like unsure what was going on. But I worked with the experts, and there were parts of the conversation that were being left out, literally being censored within our organization from like the people working there. Like, hey, what about antibodies? What about natural immunity? What about if I just had this thing? Like, how do we look at that? And all roads lead to Rome kind of thing from their perspective was, you have to be in compliance with this vaccine policy we're putting in place. It doesn't matter if you just had COVID and you have the best antibodies in the world. We're not even considering that a thing anymore. And that's when I kind of knew I was done. Like, I'm not like an anti-vax kind of person. If I was, I wouldn't have manufactured them for 13 years.
Right.
You know, because the money wasn't that good the whole time. You know, I started out making $9 an hour. So if I was like this anti-vax person, I wouldn't have stepped foot in the door for $9 an hour. It wouldn't have made sense. So I recognized that my time was limited there.
Okay.
So what had happened was, my wife was a full-time nursing student. I was the one making the money, had the benefits. My son was 8 years old at the time. The world was crazy. In one way, I knew what I had to do. Principally, I felt a certain way. I knew that I was going to stick to those principles, and I was going to walk away from the shop. I was really forcing them to fire me. They wound up firing me. But I could have, they didn't have to fire me if I would have just complied with their policy and take my chances with that. But, and to each their own, I don't fault anybody for doing whatever. It's, you do what's best for you. But I knew that my time there was limited. But because I was then going to lose the money, the income, the benefits, like I told you earlier, like my wife had no reason to believe like this video thing would work for me. But I knew that this is where I had to end up. And like, to your bigger question, which was like, do you feel like God was pulling you here? Like, or were there other things? after I left that job, we'll just say I left the job. After that job ended, I tried getting other pharmaceutical jobs. I have a very good resume in that field. I should have got plenty of interviews. There were plenty of companies where this compliance issue wouldn't have been a problem. I didn't get a single interview. And I have 13 years of like middle management, like very good resume in this industry. So then I was like, all right, well, maybe I got blacklisted in some way, or this is God telling me that I don't belong here anymore. It literally was God telling me you don't belong here anymore. He's like, hey, man, here's the decision you're being forced to make, or, you know, I'm bringing you to make. You made the decision to leave this industry. Why are you trying to get back into this industry just with a different company? That doesn't make sense, my son. Like, it's time to move on. So then I started interviewing for, or applying for like video editing positions in like agencies and like remote positions. And I had a bunch of interviews. There was one company out of Manhattan, a big marketing agency. I interviewed 5 different times for them.
For one agency?
For one job, dude.
Wow.
In this agency.
Okay.
It was the recruiter, then the manager, then the manager and some of the team members, and then the other team members, and then finally everybody together. Dude, there was no reason in my mind I was not getting hired. I'm like, who the hell makes somebody do 5 interviews and then doesn't hire them? I wound up not getting the job, you know?
Wow.
So like all of those opportunities never came to fruition either. And then that's when I realized, hey, dude, like the door that is open for you is over here. It is the door of self-reliance or self-accountability or just entrepreneurship or taking a leap of faith in yourself. And that's where I felt God was pulling me. And that's ultimately where I ended up. And again, practically zero clientele, no real reason why I would think it would actually work. This is when we met. This is right in that time frame where we met in that program. The program helped kind of kickstart me. But in 2023, I replaced my salary that took me 13 years to build up to in the pharmaceutical industry. Not a crazy amount of money in the big scheme of things, but a huge milestone for me personally to say, I don't have to look back. I made the right decision. As hard as being an entrepreneur can be, I made the right decision, and it comes with so many more benefits than I could ever imagine.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and that's super inspiring too. That's one thing I should have said I don't know if I said this in the beginning too, when you said, you know, thanks for, you know, that our conversations have been beneficial to you. I can't thank you enough too for, you know, everything, not just like kind of the role plays that you gave up your time to help me in certain times and stuff like that. But it's also super inspiring hearing those stories and just kind of like what you were going through. That was one of the things I loved about our calls too, when we had the group going with other people. Those calls kind of evolved into something that I don't think anybody really expected them to, you know? And talking about mindset is like kind of a hot topic, in the business world, maybe at all times, maybe for everybody, but that kind of turned into something that I think everybody needed, you know? And talking about just like, okay, what's the actual mindset you're going into, not just the sales call, but like the end of the day, right? Because then that'll ripple into everything. And kind of what I was saying before though too, by the way, about like how when emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. That's something I've kind of always realized too, is like you have to be calm and collected to make good decisions. But I'd never really thought about it when it comes to like a business conversation of like, no, man, you can get, or at least me, like what you were saying is like anger is the most effective in lowering intelligence. I agree with, like, for me, that's the same thing with me, and so, but anyways, going back to your point though, is like, thank you for sharing all that too with the COVID stuff and just how you felt like that was a sign to move on, and open that door. Was Seymour Mac Productions the name that you had already, like, you knew for years you were going to call it that, or did that kind of come towards the end, like around the time that you made the decision to go on your own?
Yeah. So, let's say I lost that job in June of 22.
Mm-hmm.
I formed this business in February of 2020.
Okay.
So my business was already formed, like officially, like as an LLC.
Okay.
Seymour Mack is my grandfather's name on my mother's side.
Right.
Dr. Seymour Mack Goldstein is who I named it after. And the reason that I did that was, one, he was one of the most influential men in my life growing up. He's a chiropractor for 67 years. He worked all the way up until he was about 91 years old, taking patients still, like once or twice a week. And then he stopped working and he passed away a little bit before a couple weeks before his like 94th birthday. And great guy, but kind of like a quiet guy, it wasn't a relationship where I would go there and we would have these deep conversations about his life lessons or whatever. He would just impart on me lessons and more so a way to operate as a man, right? So like when I would see him, most of the time when I saw him was at his office in Brooklyn. We would just show up and, cut the patient line and get adjusted by him, and spend a little bit of time with him. But I saw him in that element where he's serving his patients and he loved doing what he did. He loved his job. He loved helping people go from like barely being able to walk to being like physically capable again. And then they would just keep going to see him because they just loved him, and he worked with a lot of athletes, a lot of track athletes. Like the most notable one that I can remember is Jackie Joyner Kersey would go and see my grandfather. He worked with some celebrities, kind of like not as loved anymore, but Bill Cosby. I always remember seeing his picture up there on the wall with my grandfather. And like all these guys, like he had in his office or his waiting room, he had like all of these photos on the wall with him and like, famous people and athletes that would come and they would sign, he just helped them out so much that they would feel compelled to like, sign a photo or say a message and then have him put it, and then he would put it on the wall. But like seeing him as I was growing up, how he operated with integrity and honesty and care, most of all care, I knew that as I was developing this idea, this thought that like, hey, I should start my own business. Like I landed on video. Like, so I used to do music and video, a little graphic art stuff. I was never like really good at some of those things. But when I decided to kind of pick something creative back up again, I was like, well, I don't want to be a 40-year-old rapper. I don't want to, I want to put my effort into something, just one thing. I'm going to pick one thing out of the 20 things I used to do that could potentially maybe turn into something one day. And I landed on video because I really enjoyed it. And I felt like that was something that I could do on the side for now as I'm working this job, build my skills back up. And then maybe it could turn into a business. But I named the company after my grandfather because I kind of wanted a reminder. Two things. I wanted his legacy to live on in some way. The best way to do that probably would have been to become a chiropractor and like take over his practice and like continue that legacy directly. Mm-hmm. But I didn't do that. And I didn't have any plans on going to become a chiropractor. So I was like, you know what, let me name it after him. And I had the opportunity to tell him right before he died, like, hey, I named my business after you and here's why. Because of the impact that you had on my life, especially as a young man growing up, and the stuff that you instilled in me means a lot to me. And I want you to know that I appreciate that. I appreciate you, and I want your name to live on. It was just kind of like out of respect. Because Seymour Mack Productions is not very intuitive to what I do as a business, right? It's not like, it would have been far better to say like cameraguy.com or some shit like that. But the other thing that it does for me is like when I say the name, I'm talking to a potential partner that I'm going to start working with again. And I'm like, yeah, Seymour Mack Productions. Like I'm reminded of my grandfather. I'm also reminded of the things that he instilled in me and why I want to do what I do and how I want to treat, my business partners. So it's been cool, man. It's been like a really cool experience because it always comes up. It's like, hey, I thought your name was Seymour. I'm like, no, my name is Mike. Well, who the hell is Seymour Mack? Boom. And then I get to tell the story. So his legacy continually gets lived on, through these conversations. So it's kind of like the least I could do, I feel like, for him.
Absolutely. Do you ever run into people who knew him very well, and that or at least as well as you, that kind of tell you, hey, you act a lot like your grandfather, or like kind of like the way you interact with people. Do they ever see similarities in?
Yeah, so it would be mostly like family though, because I don't do a lot of work in Brooklyn, right? Like I'm in Northeast PA.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go anywhere. I'll go to Japan. I don't care. Fly me there. I'll shoot you a video there. I don't care. But I don't typically do a lot of work around Marine Park in Brooklyn anymore. So, or at all, I should say, not anymore. But I don't even go back there anymore. Now that he's not there, I really have no reason to go back there. So I don't see like randomly people, but when I talk to like extended family that maybe I don't see on a frequent basis, and they see this story, and then they kind of see what I've built here with my business and the stuff that I'm putting out. It's like, yeah, man, that makes perfect freaking sense. Like, like hopefully I got the best parts of him, like the best parts of my mom, the best parts of my dad, the influential people in my life, even my siblings, like my older siblings, even my younger siblings, man, they have like they're all such a great influence on me. Even when they're being a bad influence, or like maybe they're going through hard times, it is still teaching me a very valuable lesson of maybe don't do that, like don't venture down that path because it could get ugly. But all in all, I mean, the people that I have in my direct family are great, man. I'm very lucky to have strong relationships with both of my parents. They're both still alive. They've been divorced since I was 8. And our relationships respectively have gone through ups and downs, right? Just like marriage, man. It's like, you don't get to pick your parents. So it's like they are who they are, and you have to learn to love them even when maybe they're at their worst, or you're at your worst, that you're their kid. So they have to learn to love you through those low points too. And then like with my siblings, I have an older sister, an older brother, younger sister, younger brother from my mother got remarried. So my younger siblings are from my stepfather. And they're 10 and 11 years younger than me. But my brother's 1 year older than me. My sister's 5 years older than me. So we're much closer. Obviously, they've known me my whole life. We have a very strong relationship all the way around. All the siblings, we are very, very close. We do everything together. Like all the holidays we're together. We're playing volleyball. As soon as the weather breaks here in the Poconos, we're playing volleyball, a couple times a week together. We have game night. We're celebrating together. Like everything we do together. I'm very lucky to have them, because my friend circle, I used to place a lot of value on building my friend circle, because I thought that meant like if you had more friends, there was more value there, but that's not necessarily the case. I have a few friends that I consider friends that I've known for a long time that have remained, let's say, loyal or respectful. They have been there with me through my low points, and I love them like they're brothers and sisters. But there's a lot of people in that circle that I originally had that there's no longer are around anymore, because just some people just aren't beneficial to keep in your circle, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've been lucky to have the family unit that I have, and I don't know if you have a similar thing where like you're close with your parents or your siblings maybe, and it's been invaluable to me, man. Especially through the hard parts of life, to have them, it's been crazy.
For sure. Yeah, I do have a similar situation. I'm blessed to have close relationships, my brother, my parents, and also just strengthening that relationship at home, with my wife, and now our son, who's starting to say words and stuff like that, and he's just running around picking up on everything, and I feel incredibly blessed as well. And I think like what you were talking about, the motivation and inspiration from your grandfather, that's like, I would imagine a lot of that comes to how you were saying he treated people, like how people felt comfortable with him is super motivating, but I wanted to ask you, because I've heard you say something before where I've heard you talk about this, how when you work with contractors, stuff like that in the construction industry, they feel comfortable with you because you know how to communicate with them and how to carry yourself. Do you ever feel like you're communicating differently with prospects depending on who they are, or not? I shouldn't say prospects, but clients or just people in general in the realm of business, right? And the services that you provide. Do you ever feel like you change your communication styles? And if so, do you feel like that takes away from authenticity, or how do you kind of approach that depending on who you're talking to?
Yeah, I think it can. I think it's like, first of all, you know your audience, right? So like some people you do have to communicate with a little bit differently. But I think where I found my success, and like even when I was in the pharmaceutical industry, like you can imagine, it's a very bureaucratic environment. You know, there's a lot of political stuff going on internally, like company politics. And a lot of people, when the boss comes around, they like get all tightened up and they speak a certain way, you know, like, and I never did that. I talk to them the way I'm talking to you right now, the way I talk to my friends and my family, like for better or for worse. My one, I don't know if it's a superpower or if it's a super flaw. I don't put on a show. I don't change my voice. I don't change who I am for anybody. And sometimes that could hurt you for sure. Mm-hmm. But there's a caveat to that. It's like, I'm not being brash with everybody. Maybe I'm not cussing as much around certain people because I know they don't like it, like they don't like that communication. But so like there's adaptations that are made as far as like, you know, just make sure you're being respectful and things of that nature. Like you always want to be respectful no matter what, but you don't want to change who you are, right? Like what I want is for them to feel like from the very first conversation we had, when we're talking about like business partners, very first conversation we had, maybe it was a cold call or somebody introduced us. I spoke this way all the way up until the point where they paid me. I spoke the same way. I was consistently Mike Brown the whole entire way. And I was respectful, but I was honest. First and foremost, respectful, and then honest, and transparent, and just like willing to communicate, and then also have like a back and forth. Like it's a two-way street communication, right? So it's not just me being honest with them. Like I want the same thing back, right? So it doesn't benefit anybody to put on kid gloves and put on a show. For certain people, or change who you are. For certain people, maybe leave information out. Like sometimes people just need to hear the hard truth of what the situation is. And again, sometimes that could come back and hurt you, right? It could be a detriment to certain business relationships because maybe these people are used to being spoke to a certain way where people are yes men to them all the time, or don't give them the brutal honesty that you're about to impart on them. And for me, I've just found the success in my relationships, personal and business, have been due to the fact that I am who I am, and I don't really compromise that. I don't really care who you are. Like, I don't care if you're a $30,000 client. Like, yeah, I'm going to be respectful, but I'm also going to still tell you what I feel like you need to hear based on the success that, you know, we plan to have together, you know? So, and I have found that recently, I have a situation that comes to mind, a current client that comes to mind, where they're a bigger company, they're a new company, but they're growing very rapidly. And when I partnered up with them, I got really excited because I was like, hey, if I can get in now as their media guy, they're expanding, you know, out of the Northeast region. They're kind of going across the country. Like I could be in a position where this becomes a 7-figure client, you know, within a few years, and I'm able to hire guys out like, hey, I got a project going out in California that's in your area, Thomas. I'm going to pay you whatever your rate is. I'm going to pay you to go out there. Here's the shot list. Here's the script. Here's what we need done. You're my guy out there in Cali, in that part of Cali, capturing what needs to be done for this client. You're happy because you're getting paid your rate, hopefully maybe even above what you expected. And my client's happy because they're getting quality work. I'm happy because my client's happy, and maybe I'm still making a small slice of that profit pie. But I saw it as something like very exciting. Turns out these guys suck at communication. They are the absolute worst. I haven't had worse communication from a client ever. And it's hard. It's really hard because right now we have a project that requires their participation. I need to schedule another production day. I'm doing a bunch of interviews for them. It's going to be a great project if I could ever get it done. If I could ever get it done. And until I get it done, they're not going to see the value in it. And until that happens, there is no future relationship with me and this company going forward because they're going to feel like I dropped the ball. I'm not bringing value. So it's been a very difficult thing. So I had to have a very open conversation with the owner to say, hey, listen, I get it. Like, you are expressing to me that some of your expectations weren't met. Literally, my only expectation from you as my client, as my partner, is to communicate with me, and you guys aren't doing that. So you literally are failing 100% of my expectations as well. And this guy is not used to hearing that. And I feel like he took it pretty well. I think he appreciated like the brutal honesty and the fact that I was able to be honest. We had a very productive call after that. You know, we worked on some creative elements to the following production day that we were going to schedule. And then since then, haven't been able to get, you know, these guys on the horn to get this production done. So it's been very, very difficult. But this is one of those times where I'm like, you know, I'm thinking, would it be better if I were, you know, like kissing up to this guy and being a yes man? Or would it be better just being who I am and saying, hey, it's been now weeks. It's turning into months. At some point, I'm going to give up on you because you gave up on this project.
Right.
You know, like at what point do I say, right now it went from my highest priority, I deprioritized it because I have other clients who are communicating, who are paying me, who are obviously have more intention to complete their projects and want these things to get done. So now their project just went from like number 1 to like number 10. But at what point does it go from 10 to like the back of the paper? Because like they don't care. I keep trying to communicate. I'm not getting responses. And then at some point I have to maybe say, hey guys, final communication is you have all the raw footage. I delivered some stuff to you. Your down payment, you paid it. I mean, I put in work for that. The remaining payment sucks. I know I'm not going to get that, but also you're not getting the final deliverables. I'm kind of washing my hands of this relationship. I wish you the best of luck. I wish it could have been different. I wanted to work with you guys in a much higher capacity, but clearly you're not. Either you're not interested or you're just not able right now, and kind of cut ties and exit that relationship. So I don't know when that transition needs to happen. It's not yet, you know, I mean, we still have time here. It's just like been deprioritized.
I see. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, that can always, it can be tempting to, you know, want to speak to somebody how they're used to being talked to. But if, you know, and maybe being disingenuous might serve somebody in the short term, but I think it's always better to err on authenticity as best as you can, you know, obviously still maintaining that respect, and you want to be appropriate depending on the situation. Just like, you know, I've heard somebody say you wouldn't wear a 3-piece suit to a coffee, you know, when you're just getting coffee with a friend, but just like you also wouldn't wear shorts and a t-shirt to a funeral, you know, it's like you carry yourself based on the situation and maybe even who you're talking to, but that doesn't mean that you compromise your values and who you are as a person. Yeah, sorry, I just recognized I'm gonna switch out the battery real quick on my camera, man.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, we can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
cool.
Yeah.
We can keep talking actually.
Yeah. Yeah, swap your battery. I put a V-mount on to my battery for this very reason. I was like, if this goes long, then I want to be able to keep that camera running. So it's a lot darker, but it'll be a cool angle to cut to. And then like just even for content, putting some clips out, some quotes. You know, you see all these guys now where they got the microphone on the desk and they look like they're talking to somebody. I wonder how many of those guys aren't talking to anybody. They're like talking to a blank screen and just like pretending to have a conversation with somebody for content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, cool. Sweet. We are
Yeah.
back in business. And if I don't cut that out, thank you everybody for your patience, for bearing with us. I think, yeah, when we were talking about authenticity and stuff, you know, that is, you know, that's so important, you know, because you can't, you can't really like, you can't get away with, lying, you know, like hiding. That might seem so obvious to so many people, but it's like, you don't want to do something in the short term that might seem like the right thing to do, but in the long run, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot, you know. And I think that wait, real quick, when you were saying like, so you're in Pennsylvania, but you serve like a lot of like the East Coast, and you were saying like even with time lapses and stuff like that, do you just contract out for those jobs?
I should.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm doing now, and it's just based on like success rate of my business and income and like funds availability.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this year's kind of starting off a little slow for me, slower than I wanted. Like I set a goal for first quarter of hitting like a certain number, and like I'm gonna hit like half of that if I'm lucky. So it's been a little bit of a slow start. So if I would have hit that, then yeah. But so what I did recently was I saw some opportunity with this client that I was just talking about, who's expanding very rapidly. And I had another potential client that I was going to be onboarding who was up in Connecticut. They were based out of Connecticut. They had some stuff going on in like Jersey. And I saw some opportunity that was possibly going to be coming to my business where I needed to be able to service some states, some regions that are north of me that I don't typically service. So like New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut. I typically am doing like Eastern Pennsylvania, Northeast or Northwest, or let's just call it Northern, like New Jersey. I've done some stuff in like like around DC, Northern Virginia area as well. But what I wanted to do was create an opportunity where I had a network of videographers who were like, that I vet, you know, that are doing really great quality work, mostly Sony shooters, because that's what I shoot. I want to kind of be able to mesh well with what they already have going on. So I talked to I had Zoom calls with 10 videographers that I've now kind of like built like a network with, all throughout the region, everywhere from like Maine to Connecticut to Jersey down to Philly. And that way, when I brought on a client that said, hey, we have a thing going on in Connecticut, are you able to service that? Like, yeah, like I could be confident without skipping a beat, like whether it's going to be me taking the travel up there to do it, or I'm going to have a guy go out there and do it who I know is going to be able to provide the same level of service or better that I would be providing. I wanted to kind of have that position already set up. And it's cool, man, because like that is my intention for this year. It was my intention last year, but I didn't quite hit the mark. But rising tides lift all boats, right? So I don't mind if I make less money per project. Like the profit margin for me, like could be less overall through the course of the year or into the future 10, 5-10 years. I'll pay, guys their rate to kind of like help me provide the service for my clientele. The client's happy, they're happy, I'm happy. In the long run, everybody's making out. Everybody's getting what they want, right?
Yeah.
So, so I will contract out. I've used some editors, mostly local. Nobody like out of the country, which I know a lot of people do, which there's no fault to that. It's just I prefer to keep things as local as possible if I can, even if it's cost me more money to pay somebody to edit something here rather than, like in the Philippines or something. Those guys can do great jobs as well. It's just I would rather just keep things as local as possible. So I use guys to come out and either do assistant work with me or second shooter work. So they're helping me typically, and depending on their experience level with videography already, they're typically helping me, move the equipment around, set it up. They're capturing behind the scenes footage for me that I could use for my own content. They're learning, like I'm teaching them stuff as I'm setting up lighting or audio or whatever. If they're interested, I'm kind of teaching them some of that stuff so that way they can build their skill set up, and then hopefully I could start paying them more because they become more valuable to me and to the process. So that's kind of the extent of it so far. But yeah, man, I want this, this year to get to a point where the reputation of Seymour Mac Productions is kind of rippling out of my normal service area. I'm having more of those conversations in like Virginia, up north, maybe down south, maybe a little bit out west. And they're confident that, going with me is the right choice. And then I could bring some guys in, or, some girls, I keep saying guys, but there could be some girls out there doing what we do that would be interested in working together. And then that way I'm creating opportunity, because like at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I want to make more money. Like, yeah, I want to make good money. So let's not lie to ourselves and say like, no, I just want to barely freaking get by here. No, that's not what I want. I want to be able to provide more for my family, doing something that I really enjoy doing, which is what I'm doing now. But I also want to be able to provide opportunity for other people who enjoy doing what we do, who are working a shitty job or a job that they don't really like anymore, like I was doing, and maybe help them kind of follow their dream a little bit and provide them some income that they could, put food on the table and pay their bills with. So I see it as an opportunity for me to grow as a man, like as a member of my community, not just as like a business person. So I put a lot of value on that aspect of this journey.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That makes sense too, about being able to contract out, and then, but also wanting to keep things local when you do that. That's one of the things I liked about the video industry, or filmmaking in general, is I've heard people say that it's most people are good people, in this industry. People aren't trying to stab you in the back and stuff like that. I've heard that about web design. For some reason, that was the industry that's come up. If any web designers listen to this, shoot me a message. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's one thing I'm grateful for, is like pretty much every videographer I've come into contact with, or filmmaker, whatever, even a lot of video editors, they're cool, good people. They want to see others succeed. I've had people go out of their way to help me with things for free, like just not even expecting anything in return. And of course, that makes me want to help them, compensate them, fairly, very heavily for any future work that comes in, or sometimes I have done that too. And yeah, that's just it, kind of going back to like that everything comes full circle, like the energy that you put out, usually you get back, So,
yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying too. I think it was a more competitive scarcity mindset, even in this industry, maybe even before I really started in it. But like even when I was in like music or at my previous job, like there was always this element of like, well, I can't let this other guy succeed because then I won't succeed. And I feel like in a lot of industries, a lot of areas of life, that mentality is shifting into a, no. If I help Thomas succeed, that's only going to help me succeed. And for the people who can't think like that at this point, like I kind of feel bad for them. I talk to other videographers, drone operators in my area, like real estate photographers, whatever, all the stuff that I'm doing in my direct area, in my town. If I see somebody for the first time, like, oh, they're doing this, cool. I hit them up. I say, hey man, like I do this too. Like I would love to grab a coffee with you, pick your brain. Maybe there's something I could learn from you. That's usually how I preface those conversations. And I don't look at them as competition. I look at them as an asset because, first of all, there's plenty of work to go around, right? Plenty of clientele out there in the world, especially in the B2B area. But also, I'm very confident in what I provide. So I'm not worried that I'm not providing a high level of service. Like I'm pretty confident. Like I'm also my worst critic. So like I pick my shit apart like just as much as you probably pick your own stuff apart. But like at the end of the day, I'm confident that I'm going to deliver, or most likely over deliver for my clients. So I'm not worried about like, oh, there's a new videographer in town. He's going to take all my work. I got to go out of my way to like let people know he sucks at his job. Like, no, I see that individual as an asset to me. One, they might be better at something that I'm not as good at. Maybe it's editing, maybe it's content creation, maybe it's the actual production work, maybe it's lighting, maybe it's sound. You know, like there's always something, like, because as a videographer and as like a solo videographer, you're wearing every single one of those hats. So how can you become a master at lighting, audio, cinematography, the pre-production work that it takes, the editing, the post-production work, the communication, the sales, the delivery? Like, you have to become an expert at all of those things. But if we're being honest, at least one of those columns is going to be shorter than the other. So I look at these other individuals as assets because maybe they're really good at something that I suck at or I'm lacking at. And then I could bring them in and say like, hey, how much would it cost for you to edit this video for me? All right, cool. So how about this? I'm going to pay you exactly what your rate is, what you asked me. I'm going to make that much less money. I'll make $500 less or whatever it is. I'll pay that to you. Now the time that I would have spent editing that, I can go do something else. Maybe I'm hanging out with my family, but maybe I'm doing something in the business. Maybe I'm working on a different project. Now I'm killing two birds with one stone. That brings me so much more value than just trying to do everything myself. Then this person is getting paid some money. They're able to pay their car payment or whatever it is. We're building trust in each other. We're building this relationship with each other. And then maybe one day they say, hey, Mike, I need somebody to come out and shoot for me. Are you available? Yeah, I am. Cool. What do you need for it? I need $1,000. Great. $1,000 is in my budget. Let's do that. And now I'm providing something for them. So the mindset of like everybody's competition is a really narrow, weak mindset to have. I think the real successful mindset to have is everybody is an asset. Now, not everybody is going to be an asset, but at least you kind of go into the world with the mindset of that. Give people a shot, give them a chance. If they drop the ball, they're not who you thought they were going to be. Cool. You don't have to continue to work with them, leave them in your network. But I feel like, there's so much value out there in building relationships with people in your direct industry and not looking at everybody like they're going to take business from you, take food off your plate.
Yeah, for sure. And even to the extent that, like, when we say asset, I feel like you probably mean this too. Like, when you say asset, it's not always what you can get out of them, like it's like just even them doing their own thing. Even if you never work together, they never do anything for you. They're an asset in the sense that they help you be better, just by, like, you can learn from everybody, like I'm always trying to learn something from everybody. And even to the extent that it is a competition, let's say it is, right? In the business sense, a lot of things are a competition, and, like, to the extent that it is a competition and not a collaboration, it's also of benefit to you. Just as an example, I've heard somebody say like, oh, those videographers that are coming into the wedding industry, they're hurting the industry by doing all this free work or super free work, and they're doing a really good job. And kind of one of the YouTubers I've looked up to is Eric Floberg, and like kind of the wedding photography and filmmaking world. I heard him say on one of his podcasts, he goes, if you're a seasoned filmmaker in any industry and you're threatened by somebody who's newer to it and they're just building up their portfolio, if you're threatened by that, then you need to work on your own stuff, And so I think that's, not only is that well said, I think that's also a point to how everybody that gets better also forces you to get better at your craft, So it's like, because, if like the newer guys can charge more, for example, then it makes it easier for the seasoned people to charge even more than what they're used to charging, right? And then, but also forces them, to improve their craft, because you should always be getting better. or evolving in some way. I just realized how long we've been going, man. I mean, do you have to get going? I figured we could end on a couple of points. Anything that you wanted to add, but yeah, do you have somewhere you got to be?
No, I literally will talk to you for the next 3 hours. The only thing is, at some point, my son has to eat lunch. It's 10 here, so we got some time. And then the Wi-Fi went out on the tablet, so he's probably losing his freaking mind. But no, we don't have to cut. If you need to cut, we can cut. But I like the conversation, man. I like kind of where it's gone. It's, we've gone into more like personal mindset stuff and personal experience stuff, and then I feel like we've been bringing a lot of it back into like how it correlates to our businesses and what we do in our industry. But to what you were just saying with that mindset of, like these guys are coming in and they're doing stuff for free or next to nothing, and they're really good.
Yeah.
Good. Build a relationship with those guys.
Yeah, maybe.
You know why? Because eventually they're going to start, charging some good money for their work. But if you see them as an asset and like a valuable piece to your network, you could utilize that skill set. They're hungry, they're young, they have a lot to learn still, maybe, that you could teach them that they're still trying to learn. But then you could utilize their skill set. You could pay them a good rate, and then you could increase your product. Like if you don't really believe in your product that much, where you're worried about these guys, then you could utilize them, bring them into the fold, have them shoot some stuff for you, have them edit some of your stuff instead of you thinking that you have to do it all yourself. Take a little bit less money, pay them, that portion of the money you would have profited, and then bring them into the fold for you, and then utilize them. You could teach them something, they could teach you something. So like you said, you could always learn from somebody. And like, it reminded me of something that I said earlier, where it's like, like even some of my siblings or family members, when they're maybe going through low points in their life, they're still teaching me very valuable lessons, right? It's like teaching me how not to act, teaching me what not to do, teaching me what path not to venture down, because it could get dangerous, it could get ugly. Those are life lessons that are extremely valuable, just as much or maybe more than when they're doing the right thing and they're on a good path. And, because sometimes you take those moments for granted where you're not learning the lesson as harshly. But when somebody's going through something bad, and especially if you love them and you could recognize it and you're observant, then you can learn a lot from those to help you avoid the same pitfalls, and then kind of shorten the learning time, right? For you to get, to where your goal is, whether it's like growth or personally or business or whatever. So we could always learn from these other people, and then like even the people in your area that are maybe charging like a whatever rate, like a decent rate, but then maybe their skill set isn't that great. Maybe they kind of suck. Maybe they're burning a lot of bridges. Maybe they're presenting themselves as a higher end product, but when it comes down to deliver, they drop the ball, and they're getting a lot of negative feedback on these Facebook groups or whatever, like throughout the community. Like, you're still getting a lot of value out of that because people are showing themselves for who they are. And then people start looking elsewhere. They go, well, person A really said that they were going to deliver this thing, and they never showed up. They took my down payment, then they never showed up, and they disappeared now. Well, okay, in one aspect, it's going to make somebody maybe feel a little bad about working with other videographers in the area.
Yeah.
But in another regard, they're going to be like, well, who are the professionals in this area? It's like, well, I remember I talked to Thomas, and I wound up not going with him because I thought he was expensive. But I look at his reviews and I look at his videos, and everything is tip-top magoo. He's the best of the best. He's exactly what he said he was going to be. And now I really regret not going with him because I wanted to pinch a couple pennies and I wanted to save a few bucks. It's like, unfortunately, in most cases, especially with what we do, you get what you pay for. Sometimes you get lucky. You get somebody on the come up, and you get to pay a very low fee for a very high skilled service.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, you're kind of getting what you pay for.
Yeah. And I mean, value can even be subjective. Of course, the goal with what we do is always going to be a positive return on investment, a huge return on investment. Like I've heard you say with multiple clients, they've they've gotten so much more than whatever they invested in with you. And but we also want to, like, I want to always believe that whatever I'm charging for as an investment or asking for is significantly less than whatever I believe is worth, my product is worth, right? And so if there's ever a moment where I don't feel like that is the case, I always go back to the basics, the fundamentals, and making sure that the foundation is strong and that I'm improving the quality. And then, maybe you even drop the price a little bit to be consistent and in alignment with that philosophy. But it always just goes back to improving, improving the craft, and then also that communication with people.
But that can get a little dicey, like when you talk about dropping pricing. Like you set a price for something, but then all of a sudden you don't feel like it's worth it. If you don't believe in your product, then like why should your client believe in your product, right? So I think that comes mostly down to like a mindset thing. It's like, okay, maybe there's a situation where you pitch an idea, it's like a freaking big budget, and then you walk away from that going like, is this really going to be worth the money that I just asked them for? And they agreed to. Mm-hmm. Now they might think it's, like you said, value is subjective. So they might think they're getting an absolute deal because they place a much higher value on it than you're placing on it kind of internally. That's kind of its own separate problem of like, you just don't believe in yourself and in your product. So it could be a thing where it's like, man, I really need to improve my skill set and my service and my product, so I feel confident it's worth this much. Or maybe like most people, like you, Thomas, like myself, where we are just our own worst freaking enemies in this area, where we always go, man, I just don't believe in myself. Well, you know what? You should believe in yourself. And I've told you this before, man. Like, I remember there was a project you're working on. I won't like give the details of it because I don't want to like spill beans to like, if the client winds up watching this and then they kind of get like an inside scoop that you didn't really believe in yourself as much as they maybe thought you did.
Yeah.
But you were doing a video for a business. And I feel like some of your struggle has been valuation of like some of these projects, right? And it's most people, I do the same thing as well, where in our friend Nathan, I'm constantly battling him with what he's budgeting for these projects. And it's just like we undervalue ourselves.
Like you think he charges too low is what you're saying?
He charges too low. 100% he charges too low because I've seen his product.
Yeah.
He's got a very good product.
It's very good.
And I know that he's a great service provider. So I know that when people are working with him, they're having a very pleasant, valuable experience just partnering with him, right? So there's value to that as well. Mm-hmm. But also just like what he's providing as far as like an end product on what they agreed that he would provide, he's knocking it out of the park, 10 times out of 10. And so are you. So like, I remember you said like, hey, here's the budget that I'm gonna, and I think this is one that we did. Either you showed me what the pitch deck was and we kind of fine tuned that, or it was a role play. So I'm literally scratching the laugh mic I have on here for the camera. So I need to stop doing that. It was a role play that we did where you went through the pitch deck. You were going to have the call coming up, and then we kind of looked at some of the numbers and stuff. And I was like, dude, is this really enough money, man? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe it's, and whatever price you wind up giving them, I'm sure you could have probably gotten more, but not just because you could have got away with it, but because it was worth it. And then I remember, like, let's fast forward like a month or whatever. You got the job. You made the video. I think it was more than one video. And the fucking video was great, dude. It was like a national commercial level video. It's fucking great. And I'm looking at it going, this is a $20,000 video right here, man. Like, this video is a $20,000 video. You probably asked for $4, and it's just like, there's a lot of elements there, right? It's like what their budget is, what they could afford, how much value they place on it, like what they think the return on investment is going to be. And then also like what you ask for, because you never get what you don't ask for. And then you guys come to hopefully some sort of mutual agreement that is beneficial for all parties. But again, I think it's just one of these things where we most likely undervalue ourselves more often than we overvalue ourselves. If you walk away feeling like you overvalued your product, it's probably mostly a mindset thing. But then also it should trigger something to go, I just need to crush it. Like I need to over deliver. That's it. And maybe I give them additional assets that we never even talked about. Maybe it was this one big video, but maybe what I do is I give them a piece of content, like a highlight reel of this video or something that they could use that they completely weren't expecting. Maybe I send them a blooper reel from like all the outtakes, you know, like I've done that before, where it was like nothing that was ever going to go out to the public. But I took some time, I put together like a little blooper reel just for them to kind of laugh at themselves and have fun and remember like, oh, that was a lot of fun. You know, like we had a really good time working with Mike, and, you know, we didn't realize how many times we said or we messed up this one line, or like the funny shit that we said. It's cool, man. It was cool for them to like look back at that, and they hit me up and they were like, hey, that was awesome. Like, we're not putting that out to the public because we don't want people seeing our vulnerable selves, but that was really cool. Thank you for doing that. You know, so I feel like that it's just a little bit of value that gets added and makes me feel confident that, you know what, initially I thought maybe I charged too much, but they were happy with it. They loved the end product, and I delivered a great service.
Yeah, that's all that matters too, is like, you know, it could, getting into the technical side a little bit, is it could even be the auxiliary assets, you know, or auxiliary deliverables, depending on the industry that they're in. Like, for example, if they're somebody that values like the video or creator side, you might be able to make a YouTube video for them where you're showcasing how you used their product, you know, like to do the video itself. And so, like, obviously that's a bit of an influencer side if you have a huge following. I don't have that right now, but it could be something that you put together that shows, that's valuable to them, that they can showcase as like, hey, this person is trying to, you know, kind of get some traction as far as like developing their skill sets and stuff like that. And it benefited them in their own personal journey, you know? And so
yeah, absolutely. Or like, even if like, which is why I always recommend having a second shooter, or like a behind the scenes shooter.
Yeah.
Capturing the process, right? Not just for your own content, but you could utilize that and send them something, whether they put it out in the public or not. Maybe it's just internal. Like, send them something was like, hey, I just threw this together for you guys. And it was just like, you know, a little glimpse into like what it took to put this project together for your organization. And then they could share that like internally with people who weren't involved in the production of that video. And that helps them build culture. That helps them build trust in their organization from the members of the organization who weren't involved, right? So that could be super valuable to them. Something they didn't pay for, something they weren't expecting, and maybe not even anything that's necessarily going to benefit you with like other potential clientele, because it's not getting put out publicly like that. But I always recommend getting behind the scenes footage, and then at the very least, putting like a little something additional together for the client that they could just have for themselves and maybe share internally. Those are cool, man. Like, they just love seeing that, because typically you could throw something like that together like fairly quickly before like the actual video gets edited and produced.
Right.
And then it kind of like is a little appetizer. It holds them over a little bit, gets them more excited about seeing that final product, and then boom, you deliver that final mission video to them, and they're like, we freaking love it, man. Like, we love it so much. Everybody in the organization really enjoyed I got like a ringing in my ear. Everybody really enjoyed the behind the scenes stuff you gave us. They've been chomping at the bits for, you know, the actual video, and they freaking loved it. You killed it. What can we do next? That's always what my intent is when I deliver something, is to have them feeling like, hey, what can we do next? And sometimes it takes a little bit, because they have to implement the video. Like if it's an ad or like a commercial or something, they have to implement the video, see the return on the investment. Hopefully it crushes it for them. They spend 5-10 grand with you, they make 100 grand. If you could give them a return on their investment like that, they will 100% be coming back to you going, hey, that thing made us $100,000 in revenue. I know we only spent 10 grand. What can we do with 20? It's like, oh, well, we could do a lot with 20,
Yeah.
so let's talk about what's next, and hopefully that 20 makes them $250,000. And then hopefully it just keeps growing. Like marketing budgets are usually not capped. They're based on the return that they get from them. So like, hey, I got a $10,000 marketing budget for the year. That's going to be like video. That's going to be posts. That's going to be newspaper, whatever, paper advertising. But if that investment gives me a 10-time return, 100-time return, my marketing budget next year is not capped at 10 grand anymore. It's probably 100 grand, 50 grand, whatever it is, based on the return that you got from it. So that's what's cool about what we do when you talk about like that aspect of it. It's like there's so much potential if you can help somebody solve a problem and help them achieve a certain goal. And I think it kind of aligns with something you said earlier, which is, like we're not just trying to sell somebody a video. Like really what you're trying to do is help somebody with your skill set, with your service. And if you're able to be effective at that, it should be a no-brainer for them to hire you again. And that's what we want. We want return clientele. We want people to be happy and use us over and over and over until we're rich and we don't need money anymore, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the end is, Do we pass the business to our sons? Like, I don't know what it is,
Yeah, I know. And it's like, with marketing budgets, they're already spending the money on something. It's up to you to kind of communicate the value in that it's worth spending it with you, and then you can showcase that. Kind of like what you were saying though, building trust is like, I've heard a lot of people say that, like their product or service doesn't get purchased until the consumer is already, they've like potential buyer has already consumed tens, if not hundreds of hours of content of the person. So it's not just like they feel like they know you, like they do know you, because they've seen you. How do you react to things, and different, whether it be like jokes and stuff like that, or just interacting with other people. They see you in all these different situations. And then it's like me, right now, it would be impossible for me to be a completely different person for hours at a time on a podcast. I'm not that talented. My memory is not that advanced to where I can just like put on a completely different show, like, but yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, the end, I mean, I guess that should bring us into the next question. What do you have set for yourself as the next steps, or kind of where do you see yourself going next?
Yeah. So, right now I have like a lot of ongoing projects, and like the bottleneck is always for us, the editing portion of things. It's like,
same here.
You got one thing in post, cool. All of a sudden you got 3 things in post and you're like, holy shit, how am I going to get all this done? And especially if you're good at bringing new stuff in. So like, hopefully the lead funnel is being filled up, but you're also like delivering stuff. And there's a good tick rate to it where everything is just flowing and you're not getting held up. But currently right now I have like so much stuff in post-production that I really need to get done, because next week I have a lot of projects that I'm doing. I'm doing like 3 or 4 different production days for 3 or 4 different clients. So I'm going to have 3 or 4 new projects to edit like right away.
Oh, wow.
And one of them I'm not charging for. It's I'm doing a free project. So, but like my plans and my goals for this year with the business specifically, like obviously I have financial goals. So I have a certain number that I'm trying to hit. Currently, I'm not hitting that number, but I am confident that everything will be fine in the end.
Yeah.
But outside of financial goals with the business, I have like developmental goals, right? Like I want to learn new skill sets, right? So just like identify like, hey, maybe I want to learn a little bit more about visual effects, like get a little bit better at doing some visual effects if it's going to be valuable for my clients. All right. And then take the time every week, take like an hour a day or 2 hours, whatever it winds up being, whatever the number is, to learn that skill set so where I can get comfortable at providing that service, right? So right now, that's kind of like also part of my my goals and kind of like what I'm working on now, is rolling out some new products that I have as far as like like video packages or ideas that I have set out. So right now, like one of those things, just as an example, I'm calling the branding starter kit. So basically it would be for somebody who's maybe just got a new business and they want to start branding, or they're already an established business, but just don't do a lot of content on social media, if any at all. And they want to start breaking into that. They just don't know where to start. They're not like ready to take the leap into hiring somebody on like a monthly retainer yet. So basically what this is a discounted rate where you get a series of like 10 to 15 professional photos. They might be headshots, lifestyle, products that you have, location, whatever. We kind of tailor it to the client. And then 5 short form content. So like everything's geared towards like Instagram initially, but could be cross-posted on all of your social media platforms. So like we're talking about vertical video mostly. So like in the videos, it's like a little bit of everything. So we have like the origin story, we tell a little bit about like, the background story, maybe like the mission video, like a condensed version of that. We have a behind the scenes video. We have maybe a product or a service highlight video where we just really highlight a specific product that you have. We have there's another one in the beginning. So we do like a trust building video, another trust building video. Behind the scenes is just more like creative, put out a piece of like creative, engaging content. The product or service highlight video is kind of trust building, but it's more of like an introduction to something specific that you are trying to sell. But up until this point, you haven't tried to sell anything yet. You're not asking for anything. And then the final piece is like, or the final piece would be the service or product highlight video. That's where you ask for like, hey, if you're interested in my product or if you're looking to hire me, whatever. That's when you do the final ask in the series of the 5 videos. Right before that, we do more of a leadership content. So it's like giving value away. So like, what questions do your potential clients typically ask you? Let's kind of tackle one of those and put it into a video form of content. And then we bundle all that together at a discounted rate. We shoot everything in one day. We deliver that to them. And that's kind of like the introduction to what doing monthly content would look like.
Okay.
So the idea behind this product that I put together is like, it's introductory to them going like, hey, that was awesome. It really worked for me. Can we do that like on a monthly basis? Like, yeah, you could hire me monthly and we could basically do the same thing. And we basically kind of rinse and repeat, and we do a lot of content. We just do monthly content based on what they want to put out. So one of my goals that I have that I'm working towards now is like getting some proof of concept for that, which is a shoot that I'm doing next week for free. I'm not taking any money for it because it's a friend of mine as well, so I want to help her out. But ultimately it'll pay off for me, so I'm not worried about it. But then to be able to say like, hey, here's the proof that this branding starter kit is effective, could be valuable to you, and then market with basically what we did for her. And I already have somebody else, a paid client, who's going to be using that product. So yeah, man, I'm looking to expand the business a little bit, and to the point where I could hire some editors on a more frequent basis. Again, rising tides lift all boats. So I'm trying to lift up some ships here, and just spend more time with family. Like that's the other thing too, is like, I don't want to have to edit everything. I don't want to have to go out on every single shoot. I want to be in a position where I can do all these shoots. But if I want to spend time with my son, go to a game with him, spend time with my wife, then I have flexibility where I could do that without losing the opportunity that may come up, right? So, yeah, I want to be able to say like, yep, I'm going to have my guy come out there. He's going to film for you. You're going to love it. He's going to knock it out of the park for you. And then, there's, as long as we're delivering for them, they don't really usually care who's out there, as long as whoever you're sending out there is, kind of aligned with the vision and the energy that you have imparted on them already. So yeah, just growth, man. Growth mindset, business wise, and then personally. I've been on a fitness journey since October 2nd and a nutrition journey with my fitness coach and a good friend of mine, George, who's down in Miami. He recently just took a leap of faith and left his audiovisual job to do fitness coaching full time. And he's been coaching me since October, man. I've lost, dude, I was 205 pounds when I started with him, 178 pounds this morning.
Nice.
The best shape of my life, 40 years old. Like, I feel great. Like, I'm eating great. Becoming more disciplined. I'm getting up early.
I've been
reading
seeing,
every night.
Your
like
Instagram posts. It's like ridiculous, man. I'm like, man, I gotta beat Mike. He's already up at 4:30 this morning. You know.
Yeah, I've been slacking lately, so I haven't been posting as much because I haven't been getting up as early. But this past week, I started like creeping back towards the 5 a.m. wake up.
Nice.
So the goal is to creep back towards the 4:30 wake up, and then just get up. Just get up, and basically I get up and I work out right away.
Yeah.
You know, like I brush my teeth, obviously, and weigh myself, go to the bathroom, then I weigh myself. That's like my routine. But then I just work out. I work out at home. I have a bunch of equipment here. So I'm able to just kind of hit it. And then usually if I'm good about it, I'm done before my wife is getting up for work, well before my son is getting up for school. And now my day can just get started. As soon as I put my kid on the bus, I can now just start my work day or whatever else I have to do. And I'm not taking any time away from productivity, right? I'm starting early. The struggle session is getting to bed at a reasonable time to where I can consistently wake up at 4:30. So that's been the hard part for me.
For sure. Yeah. No, I'm kind of with you on that one. It's like I want to just stay up and keep watching, you know, whether it's, you know, hanging out with my wife and like we're watching a new show that's great or, you know, doing whatever, working on an editing project. That's always a struggle for me. All those products, you know, the different services you were talking about, if somebody is listening to this and they feel like they definitely are interested in that, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website at seymourmac.com or just find me on social media. Just search Seymour Mac or Seymour Mac Productions. I think on Instagram it's like _ Seymour Mac, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But you could find it would be super easy if you just Googled Seymour Mac. I'm gonna be the first 20 freaking things hopefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could hit me up anywhere. Just message me on social or email me or whatever. Reach out to me. My phone number's out there too. Like as a business person, my number's just out there. So
yeah,
I guess you could just call me too. Just preface it with, "Hey, I saw you on Tom's podcast, and I really loved your conversation."
I know.
Like that way I don't just hang up on you. Yeah. I know a lot about you, bro. Like I know you don't know me, but I know a lot about you. So yeah, that would be great, man. And like the other thing is too, like if somebody, maybe they're not looking to hire me because I'm not in their area, but they just wanted to pick my brain because they're looking to hire somebody in their area. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of don't know where to start or what red flags to look out for or whatever. I'm an open book. I'll share as much information as I can. As long as I have the time to have those conversations, I would be more than happy to give that value to anybody who's interested.
Awesome. And then as we come to a close here, is there anything else that you would want to say to maybe the younger people out there who kind of see themselves in you and the messaging that you've put out? Any kind of words of wisdom that you'd like to pass on to anybody else in a similar situation or journey?
Yeah, I think what I would say is, first of all, I'm 40 years old and just figuring this stuff out. So
still young.
You probably don't have to wait this long. Yeah, I'm still young. I'm maybe at the halfway mark, maybe hopefully a little less than the halfway mark. But we all come to the crossroads when we come to them, right? So sometimes we don't dictate when the path or the door opens up. It opens up when it does. Be humble enough and be observant enough to recognize when those doors open up. I think a lot of times we get so caught up in the rat race and the grind and the routine and comfort, especially, that we don't recognize opportunity when it comes our way because it seems too risky. It seems uncomfortable. It doesn't seem like, it would be worth doing. Like, be humble enough to understand that you don't understand everything at that moment. And with great risk comes great reward. So just staying in your comfort zone is not always, I would say, is almost never the most beneficial path to take. I would say get comfortable being uncomfortable, have some faith in yourself, take a little leap of faith, have faith in God that that He is bringing you on a path to become the person He intended you to be. And that has been my journey. And if you're younger, like if you're in your teens or your 20s and you're hearing this message, do it now. Don't wait until you're 30 and you're 40 or wait until something horrible happens. If you have that tugging on your heart that says, hey, I really kind of want to go in this direction, explore that direction, take a leap of faith, put some risk on it, put some skin in the game, and you may be surprised at what you're capable of.
Well, well said, man. Well, hey, Mike, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it, and I seriously, I've benefited a lot from this. This has been fun too, just chatting away, and thank you again so much for your time, man. And we should do this again sometime.
Absolutely, I'm happy to be your first. You will never forget me because I am your first, and I'm excited to see where this goes for you. As you do more and more of them, you're going to start fine-tuning it, and it'll be great, man. So I'm happy to be a part of this process, and I loved it, man. It was great. So, yeah. And we're going to talk anyway,
Yeah.
We talk anyway, so we'll wind up talking or texting each other at some point about something. But, yeah, I'm excited to see some clips come out and some content come out, and you let me know if there's any way I could help.
Hey, yeah, I appreciate it, man. All right, Mike. Well, yeah, we'll be in touch, obviously, over text and stuff. I'm sure there's going to be things like, oh man, I should have done this, or we should have talked about this. But
yeah,
that's just the name of the game. That's how it goes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Mike, thanks so much, man. Have a good rest of your day. Good. What day is it? Saturday. Good. Have a good weekend, man.
Yeah. Thank you. You too, man.
Of course.
All right. Later.
All right. See you.